The sharp edges of the ceramic plate seemed to hum in the silence, catching the overhead light with a subtle gleam. 6 months into Claire's pregnancy, a casual family dinner had twisted into one of Lorraine's familiar performances. My mother, Lorraine, paused, her gaze drifting from Claire's gently rounded belly to something unseen in the middle distance. "Diane," she began, her voice a soft, almost wistful murmur, barely looked pregnant from behind, even in her 6th month. "Such a neat little bump." She sighed, a delicate, lingering sound, before her eyes returned to Claire, her smile sweet and unwavering. "Some women just carry differently, I suppose." Claire, always composed, always attempting to navigate the minefield my mother laid, simply nodded and offered a fragile, "That's sweet, Lorraine." The words were an automatic defense, a small, polite shield against the subtle cut. But I felt it, the invisible prick, and the air around us seemed to chill. My fork clinked against my plate as I set it down, the sound disproportionately loud in my ears. Had she truly just said that? Had she truly just compared my wife's changing body to my sister's, right there at the dinner table, in front of everyone, with that saccharine veneer of concern? The question echoed in my mind, a sour note refusing to dissipate. I knew Lorraine's patterns, recognized the calculated pleasantries that concealed a barbed hook, but this felt particularly audacious. Later that night, the kitchen light casting long shadows, I confronted her. "Mom," I started, trying to keep my voice even, "what you said about Claire, about Diane not looking pregnant, it wasn't okay." Lorraine's face immediately adopted an expression of bewildered innocence, her brow furrowing with feigned confusion. "Owen, darling, whatever are you talking about? I don't recall saying anything of the sort. I've been nothing but kind to Claire." And that was always the end of it. A wall of practiced denial, impenetrable and frustratingly familiar. I knew this dance, had known it for years. Lorraine, at 66, a recent retiree with too much time and a personality finely honed for judgment, operated on a singular metric, my older sister, Diane. Diane, 41, 40 minutes away, was the golden standard. She'd married on schedule, bought a house on cue, and navigated every life decision with a precision Lorraine admired and expected. Diane was the blueprint, and everyone else, especially Claire, was merely a flawed improvisation. Claire, my Claire, was 30, worked in supply chain operations, and possessed a quiet strength and decency I'd rarely encountered. She didn't fit Lorraine's pre-approved mold. She hadn't attended the right schools or followed the prescribed timeline. From the moment I introduced them, Lorraine had been cool, not overtly cruel, but with an insidiously subtle disparagement. Her compliments were backhanded, her smiles technically perfect but devoid of warmth. Claire, bless her, had tried. She showed up early, remembered Lorraine's obscure interests, brought thoughtful gifts. She performed every role of the dutiful daughter-in-law, tirelessly building a bridge that Lorraine had no intention of crossing. But Lorraine had made her judgment early, and her decisions, once etched, were immutable. I had tried to intervene, gently at first. "Mom, you're unfair. Claire's making an effort." But Lorraine would simply look wounded, as if I'd accused her of a terrible fabrication. There was nowhere to go. So, we settled into a weary rhythm, Claire trying, Lorraine remaining impervious, and me, always me, not pushing hard enough. I told myself it would change, that marriage would solidify things, that the arrival of a grandchild would surely soften her. People adjust, I reasoned, they accept what they can't change. It was a comfortable lie I told myself to avoid the harder truth. Then, about a month before our wedding, Claire got pregnant. The timing was unexpected, a little untidy by Lorraine's standards, but for us, it felt utterly right. We were stable, happy, ready. Most reactions were joyous, effusive. Lorraine's congratulations, however, were delivered with the flat, impersonal tone of someone reading a legal disclaimer. Within a minute, she pivoted, launching into a detailed account of how Diane had orchestrated her life and pregnancies perfectly, marriage first, a few years to settle, then a well-planned baby. It was the first comparison, the opening salvo in a 9-month campaign. From that day, Claire's pregnancy became a public performance for Lorraine, a competition Claire was destined to lose. I missed most of the daily skirmishes, immersed in long hours at the consulting firm. Claire, in her quiet way, protected me, filtering the worst of it, not wanting every evening to be a debrief of my mother's latest offense. But I pieced enough together. Diane, apparently, had never known a single day of morning sickness. Claire, like most human women, battled it fiercely through her first trimester, a biological reality Lorraine recast as a character flaw. Diane, Lorraine asserted, had maintained a pristine diet, organic and virtuous. Claire, struggling to keep anything down, craved whatever her body would tolerate. Lorraine would scrutinize Claire's plate, a referee poised to blow a whistle, sometimes exhaling a long, dramatic sigh, sometimes just a look, which, somehow, was worse. The baby shower in month 7 was a meticulously planned affair, peaceful and intimate. Lorraine attended, and for 2 straight hours, she regaled guests with glowing descriptions of Diane's shower, the elegant catering, the bespoke invitations, the exquisite theme. She didn't directly disparage Claire's choices, she simply elevated Diane's, creating an unspoken chasm between the two. Across the room, I caught Claire's mother's eye. A shared understanding passed between us, a wordless commiseration. Then came the maternity photos, taken in the golden light of a late autumn afternoon. Claire looked radiant, genuinely happy with the results. She showed them to Lorraine on her phone. Lorraine scrolled through, her expression unreadable, before remarking, "Diane looked so radiant and at peace in hers." Not an insult, not directly, but another needle prick, another insinuation, delivered with that same pleasant, unwavering smile. One Sunday evening in her 7th month, I found Claire hunched at the kitchen counter, staring blankly at the wall. She told me Lorraine had stopped by earlier. For 2 hours, Lorraine had waxed lyrical about how Diane had carried so beautifully, just a perfect little bump. Then, with a casual glance at Claire, she'd added, "Some women just get big everywhere." She delivered it in a pleasant, informational tone, as if sharing a scientific fact. Claire, ever the peacekeeper, had laughed it off in the moment. But now, the laughter had evaporated, leaving behind a profound weariness. I called Lorraine that night. She claimed no recollection. 9 months of that. 9 months of relentless, subtle erosion. In the back of my mind, I held on to a desperate hope, once Lily arrived, everything would reset. Babies, I thought, were magic. They softened even the most rigid hearts. It would be different when she was real. Then Diane had a miscarriage. The news was a shock, a deep, pervasive grief that settled over our family. Diane had wanted this baby so badly, and no one deserved such a devastating outcome. Claire and I felt genuine sorrow for her. We sent flowers, checked in, offered our support, and gave her space. That part was uncomplicated. What happened with Lorraine in the weeks that followed was something else entirely. The shift was immediate and chilling. She began calling more frequently, not to check on Diane, but on Lily. How was she doing? What was her latest weight? When could Lorraine come and hold her? Gifts began to arrive, expensive, carefully chosen items, tiny designer outfits, a handcrafted mobile, a collection of classic picture books, each more lavish than anything she'd bothered with before. They arrived unannounced, like offerings laid before an altar. Claire's expression, when the second package landed on our doorstep, was utterly flat. No anger, no sadness, just a profound, unsettling blankness. I knew what she was thinking because I was thinking it too, but I didn't want to voice the terrible suspicion aloud. Within a month, Lorraine's visits escalated. Every other day, then daily, sometimes twice a day. She stopped waiting for invitations, having long ago been given a spare key for actual emergencies. Now, she simply let herself in. She'd stride directly to wherever Lily was, scooping her up without a glance at Claire. If Claire was about to feed Lily, Lorraine would declare she'd handle it. If Claire was already holding her, Lorraine would simply extend her hands, a silent, absolute demand, as if Claire were merely a temporary custodian. The comments resurfaced, quieter now, but with the same relentless frequency. "Oh, you're doing it that way? I always did it differently." Or, "You look exhausted, honey. You really should sleep when she sleeps." Diane always made sure to take care of herself. Delivered sweetly, one at a time, spaced just far enough apart that to challenge them felt petty, overdramatic. But they stacked. Over days, they accumulated, a quiet, oppressive weight pressing down on Claire. She began to look like a woman treading water for too long, her eyes holding a silent plea. I clung to my narrative, it was grief. Lorraine had lost a grandchild, and Lily was her way of processing that profound void. I kept giving her room, telling myself, *1 more week. She'll level out, she never did. One afternoon, a cancelled meeting sent me home early. I slipped in through the garage, the quiet of the house a welcome reprieve. But as I neared the kitchen, Lorraine's voice cut through the stillness. She was telling Claire that the only way Lily would turn out functional was if Lorraine moved into our apartment and took over raising her herself. The words hung in the air, cold and definitive. I stopped dead in the hallway, letting the absurdity, the sheer audacious entitlement, sink in. When I stepped into the kitchen, Claire's face, etched with a mixture of exhaustion and utter defeat, shifted instantly, a flicker of hope blooming in her eyes. Lorraine turned, saw me, and instead of stopping, she doubled down. She launched into a list, a scathing indictment of Claire's appearance, the perceived untidiness of our apartment, her methods of handling Lily. She called Claire a mess. Said Lily would grow up broken and neglected if left in Claire's care. Lorraine declared herself the only responsible adult present, expecting gratitude for her willingness to step in. I'm not a yeller. It's not how I operate. But a cold, absolute certainty settled over me. I looked Lorraine directly in the eye, my voice low and steady. You have just crossed every single line you will ever get to cross in my house. The words were calm, precise, imbued with a finality that brooked no argument. Leave. And don't come back. She didn't leave quietly. A storm broke. She screamed, her voice raw and shrill, accusing me of being manipulated, of abandoning my own mother. As I pushed her gently but firmly out the door, she began to pound on it, a desperate, frantic rhythm, as if we were locking her out of something that was rightfully hers. Claire stood trembling beside me, her arms wrapped around herself. I ended up calling building security to escort her from the property. Her furious shouts echoed down the hallway as they led her away, a parting shot that vibrated in the silence she left behind. The next several days were a deluge. Lorraine's voicemails arrived in waves, first, the furious ones, spitting venom at Claire, accusing me of weakness, of being controlled by a woman. Then came the weepy ones, long, gasping sighs and mournful declarations, all I ever wanted was to help this family. Never once did she mention what she'd said in our kitchen, never acknowledged a single word of her vile accusations. It was all about her love, untethered from context or accountability. Then the extended family started. Cousins I barely recognized, an uncle we hadn't seen in years. Lorraine had clearly gotten to them first, painting a version of events that omitted every crucial detail of her own actions. To them, we had cruelly cast out a grieving grandmother. One cousin sent a sanctimonious message about family needing to come together. Another declared what we were doing to Lorraine, after everything Diane went through, unforgivable. I reread their words, a bitter taste in my mouth, wondering how anyone could be so willfully blind. Next, social media. Lorraine, a master of emotional performance, penned long, rambling posts about being cut off from her granddaughter without explanation. She posted about her devastation, her inability to understand what she had done to deserve this. Not a single word about the kitchen, not a single mention of calling Claire an unfit mother. Just a grandmother performing heartbreak for strangers, who, lacking all context, joined the digital pile-on. They called us heartless, told Lorraine she deserved better. Some found Claire's accounts, sending her direct messages that vibrated with misplaced outrage. Lorraine even called Claire's parents, somehow acquiring their number, weaving her tearful narrative. Claire's mom called us shortly after, advising us to be the bigger people. Claire, her voice clear and unwavering, laid out the unvarnished truth. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Maybe, her mother finally offered, she didn't mean it like that. Claire replied, she meant every word, and hung up. We haven't spoken much about that call since. It went on like this for 2 exhausting weeks. A new message from a distant relative, another voicemail from Lorraine, another scathing comment on her social media. It was a low-grade, relentless pressure from all directions. Claire stopped opening certain apps. I let unknown numbers go to voicemail. We were both running ragged. Part of me, even then, still sought an off-ramp, a way to mitigate the damage. She was my mother, after all, a connection difficult to sever completely, even when you knew it was the right, necessary choice. But she didn't want an off-ramp. She wanted something I could not, would not, give. Then we started seeing her. Not at our building, which security now guarded, but at other places. The grocery store 2 blocks away. The park where Claire took Lily for afternoon strolls. The coffee shop on the corner, which Claire eventually stopped frequenting. She would be there, always just far enough away to avoid a direct confrontation, yet undeniably present. She never spoke, never approached. She would simply stand and watch, her gaze unwavering, until she knew we had seen her. Then she would leave. It was methodical, designed to convey a chilling message, you are never truly off my radar. It worked. Claire began varying her routes. We started checking our surroundings before leaving the apartment. Our lives were shrinking, dictated by Lorraine's silent surveillance. We began to document everything, timestamps, locations, screenshots, photos. Our lawyer, consulted about a restraining order, advised meticulous record-keeping. So we did. For weeks, we built a file. Then, one afternoon, Lorraine appeared at our building. Calm, composed, no screaming. She rang the bell. When I opened the door, she handed me a slender folder, her eyes devoid of emotion, and then turned and walked back to her car without a word. Inside, legal documents. She had filed for grandparents' rights. She was taking us to court for mandated visitation with Lily. After all of it, the accusations, the screaming, the constant intrusions, the social media campaign, the silent stalking, she believed a lawsuit was the answer. It was a level of self-delusion that defied comprehension. She had declared Claire an unfit mother, and now she sought legal access to the child whose mother she had so viciously condemned. It was a breathtaking act of entitlement. We found a serious lawyer, organized our evidence, the texts, the voicemails, the time-stamped photos of her car, the letter she'd slipped under our door, the documented public appearances. Our attorney reviewed the voluminous file. You have a strong case, he said, his voice calm and reassuring. Lorraine, meanwhile, continued her campaign. Messages arrived with a new tone, veiled warnings that she would never stop fighting, that we were holding Lily prisoner, that we would regret our choices. She tried to leave gifts at our door, we sent them back, sparking another wave of messages about our cruelty. A handwritten letter arrived, admonishing us to stop this nonsense and warning that she would not allow her grandchild to be kept from her. Interesting language for someone who had voluntarily initiated legal proceedings. One evening, I saw her parked across the street, staring at our building. I went downstairs, my blood running cold, and told her, calmly, that I would call the police if she didn't leave immediately. She simply smiled, a small, knowing curve of her lips, and said nothing. Eventually, she drove away. It went into the file. The court date arrived. I wish I could say I felt confident walking in. I felt prepared, yes, but not confident. There's a crucial difference. I knew our case was solid, but the outcome in a courtroom always felt uncertain, a roll of the dice. Lorraine entered, impeccably dressed, a smug expression she barely contained. Her attorney had clearly coached her. She played the role of the devoted grandmother flawlessly, quiet voice, sincere expressions, hands clasped. Her argument, delivered without a single flicker of dishonesty, painted her as a loving, involved grandmother, unfairly cut off by an unreasonable daughter-in-law, implying I'd been manipulated. She omitted everything else. Then it was our turn. We laid out the full chronology. The texts, the voicemails, the photos of her car, the letter, the documented appearances. But we didn't stop there. We presented the 9 months of comparison comments during the pregnancy, the escalating daily intrusions after Diane's miscarriage, the screaming scene outside our door, the social media campaign, the extended family harassment. We laid bare the entire pattern, from the first passive-aggressive comment to the delivery of the legal folder. The judge didn't need long. Restraining order granted. Visitation case dismissed. As we walked out, Lorraine's voice, raw with fury, ripped across the parking lot. She screamed that we had ruined her life, that I had been poisoned, that she would never forgive us. I didn't look back. I held Claire's hand, its warmth a grounding presence, and we walked to the car, leaving her rage to dissipate into the afternoon air. The extended family, once again, came at us hard. People who hadn't sent a single text during Claire's pregnancy, who had never asked about Lily, suddenly had vehement opinions about my character. They called us cruel, heartless. They painted Lorraine as a grieving grandmother, and us as monsters for using the legal system against her. We cut them all off. No explanations, no back and forth. If you chose to believe a manufactured narrative without bothering to ask for the truth, that was your choice. Live with it. About a month after the ruling, a woman knocked on our door. She introduced herself as a social worker. An anonymous report about neglect in our home. She needed to conduct a welfare check. I knew immediately. Before she finished her second sentence, I knew. The accusations were baseless, fabricated. Lily was healthy, the apartment clean. But we still had to endure it. The social worker was professional, methodical, checking every room, asking detailed questions. But the experience itself was humiliating, deeply invasive. To be forced to prove your competency as a parent in your own home, with your child present, simply because someone who hated you decided to make a phone call. We kept our faces neutral, answered every question. Within an hour, the case was closed. The report, she noted, was unfounded. That documentation, too, went into our file. That was the line. We were done. We didn't announce it, didn't tip anyone of. We found a new place, in a different part of the city, and handled the logistics quietly over a few weeks. One day, we simply weren't at the old address anymore. New phone numbers. We pulled every photo of Lily from social media, went fully private on all our accounts, stopped posting anything at all. The list of people who knew where we'd gone numbered precisely 3, 2 close friends and Claire's sister. No coworkers, no neighbors, no remaining extended family. It sounds extreme. But it wasn't. Not after what we'd endured. The first few weeks in the new apartment held a strange, new texture. Not bad, just a quiet so profound it felt alien, demanding readjustment after months of constant vigilance. I still found myself checking cars I didn't recognize as I pulled into the garage. Claire admitted doing the same on her walks to the mailbox. Cameras on the doors, checked out of habit before bed, even when I knew there was nothing there. But nothing came. No unexpected knocks, no forwarded letters, no messages routed through mutual acquaintances. Just quiet. About a month in, a package was forwarded from our old address. Claire opened it, then went utterly still. Inside, a photo album of Lily. Pictures we hadn't taken. Some were screenshots from our old social media, pulled before we went private. Others were from Lorraine's visits to our old apartment, pictures she had taken. Lily in her nursery, in the bouncy seat, asleep in her crib. She had printed them, organized them, labeled them. Archived them. As if Lily, and her image, already belonged to her. We reported it. The authorities noted it, added it to the file. But under the current order, there wasn't much more they could do. After that, we went completely dark. Things have been quiet for a couple of months now. We're careful not to call it over because we've been wrong before. But quiet is what we have, and we're taking it one day at a time. Diane reached out through one of my old accounts. She said she'd heard what actually happened, a version untainted by Lorraine's edits. She was disgusted. She understood completely if we wanted no contact, but she wanted us to know she was sorry. She didn't ask to see Lily, didn't try to position herself as a reasonable alternative. She just said she was sorry and left it at that. I didn't write back, but I didn't delete the message either. That was all the grace I had left. Claire and I are good. Genuinely good. Lily is healthy, growing fast, grabbing at everything within reach, and already possesses strong opinions about her food, which I honestly respect. We don't talk about Lorraine the way we used to. She's become something that happened to us, not something that is still happening. Most mornings, I don't think about her at all, a state that felt impossible just 8 or 9 months ago. The restraining order is still active. We're still watching, still cautious. But mostly, we're just living. I don't have a clean lesson to offer. Some people, it seems, simply do not come around. Some prefer to file paperwork than to confront their own actions. You try patience, and they perceive it as permission to push harder. You try reason, and they mistake it for weakness. Eventually, you stop trying to manage the situation and simply protect what matters. We protected ours. It cost us relationships, some of which, looking back, we probably should have shed long before we finally did. I only wish we'd gotten there sooner. How many silent cuts, how many carefully placed barbs, does it take before our family finally splinters beyond repair?